Have you ever heard of a place where women not only have a voice, but completely dominate the structure of society? A place where they pass on the family name, run the household, control the finances, and decide who and when they want to be with. It sounds like a fictional world created to challenge modern patriarchal norms, but this place is real, and it's hidden in the mountains of China. Get ready to discover the Mosuo, one of the last matrilineal societies on Earth. A people where the concept of father holds little to no social function, where marriage, as we know it, doesn't exist, and women make all the decisions, from child rearing to inheritance to relationships. But does it all really work the way it seems? Or is there something more complex behind this seemingly female utopia? Before we judge through Western eyes, we need to understand, what exactly is a matriarchal society? And what makes it so different and so fascinating from what we're used to? In the village of Lugu Lake, in Yunnan province, near the Tibetan border, lives an ancient ethnic group that defies centuries of Chinese tradition. The Mosuo are a branch of the Naxi people, but their customs are so unique that even anthropologists are intrigued. And the most curious part? Their entire social structure revolves around women.
In Mosuo households, the one in charge is the grandmother. She is the great matriarch. The whole family system is centered around her. Children are born, raised, and live with the mother's family, not the father's. And when a man has children, they don't live with him, they live with their mother. That's right, the biological father has virtually no direct obligation toward his children.
Instead of traditional marriage, the Mosuo practice what's known as a walking marriage. Here's how it works. The woman chooses whom she wants to be with. At night, with her consent, the man crosses the so-called marriage bridge, an old symbolic path over the lake's reeds, to the woman's house. He quietly enters through the window and spends the night with her. At dawn, he returns to the house where he lives with his own mother and sisters. If she wants to see him again, she will. If not, that's the end of it. No drama, no divorce, no property division. There's no living together and no legal obligations between them. Now, pause and think. What would a world without jealousy look like, where every woman had full freedom to choose and reject partners without answering to anyone, and where men didn't play the role of provider or head of the household? The Mosu have lived this way for centuries. For them, stability lies in not binding people to each other. The strongest bond is not between husband and wife, but between siblings, mothers and daughters, aunts and nieces. That feminine web forms the core of their community, but that doesn't mean men are excluded. On the contrary, they play a highly respected role, that of uncles. In practice, men care for their sisters' children, not their own. It's the uncle who teaches, protects, and guides, a completely different logic from what we know. You may be wondering, how does this system sustain itself economically? The answer is simple. Inheritance is passed from mother to daughter. Land, animals, homes, everything goes to the women. They manage the family business, decide what to plant, what to sell, what to buy. Men contribute, of course, but they don't own the family wealth. Curiously, this model has worked well for the Mosuo, who lived in relative peace and balance for generations, preserving their traditions, until the outside world came knocking. Eventually, tourism arrived in the region, and with it, curiosity and judgment. On one hand, visitors were fascinated by such a unique culture. On the other, some began labeling the Mosuo as promiscuous, accusing the women of living like libertines because of their unconventional way of life. What many fail to understand is that for the Mosuo, love is not about possession. Motherhood isn't tied to a social contract, and fidelity is neither demanded nor expected. Still, the arrival of modernity brought challenges. Many young Mosuo began studying in big cities, exposed to different values, and started questioning their roots. The influence of the internet, dominant Chinese culture, and religion slowly began to reshape their customs. Today, some Mosuo families have adopted traditional marriage. Some women prefer the patriarchal model, either out of pressure or convenience. And while tourism brought economic development, it also led to distortions. Some hotels and agencies now sell the matriarch fantasy, fetishizing the culture to attract curious travelers. And this is where the story becomes even more interesting and more delicate. Will this matriarchy survive the test of time? Is it possible to live in a female-led society in the 21st century when nearly every other culture follows a different path? The story of the Mosuo challenges us to rethink what we call normal. It makes us ask, what if there were other valid ways to live, to love, and to build community, different from the ones we've always known? Is our model truly superior, or just the most widespread? And more importantly, is this society where women lead truly a female paradise? Or even there, beneath all that freedom, do invisible limits still exist, shaped by tradition, geography, and history? The answers may lie in the voices of Mosuo women themselves. They're the ones who will, or won't, keep this ancestral culture alive. They'll decide whether it still makes sense to live as their grandmothers did, and they're the ones who, perhaps without realizing it, are showing the world that, yes, other ways of living together do exist, and that doesn't have to be a problem. But in the end, what allows a society like the Mosuo to survive for centuries without collapsing? How has this matriarchal model endured wars, revolutions, and now the pressure of globalization? The answer may go deeper than just customs: cultural resilience. For the Mosuo, tradition holds deep meaning, and within that structure, women are the foundation. Through them, history is passed on, values are taught, and the community is organized. Motherhood for them is not only biological, it's social, spiritual, and political. And that's where one of the most fascinating aspects of Mosuo life comes in: the concept of universal motherhood. Instead of one woman caring only for her own kids, responsibility is shared among sisters, grandmothers, aunts, and cousins. It's as if every woman is a mother to every child. This not only eases individual pressure, it strengthens collective bonds. This kind of thinking actually forces us to reflect. Is motherhood in the West perhaps too overloaded precisely because it's so isolated? Is the traditional model, father, mother, and children living alone in a house, really the most functional? In Mosuo villages, there's room for a different logic, the logic of shared care. The elderly are not abandoned, children are not outsourced. Life happens together in an environment where generations coexist closely. The grandmother who runs the household is also the one who rocks the grandchildren to sleep, cooks the meals, coordinates the crops, and, when necessary, gives the final word on important decisions. But if everything seems so harmonious, why hasn't the Mosuo model spread? Why hasn't it become a global reference? The answer may lie in its greatest strength. It depends on collectivity. And in a world that's increasingly individualistic, where independence is praised above interdependence, models like this seem unviable or simply strange. And we also have to admit, it's not perfect. Even in matriarchal societies, there are tensions, conflicts, and challenges. As powerful as Mosuo women may be within their families, they still face difficulties outside their community. When they travel, study, or try to marry someone from the outside, they're often met with rejection for not conforming to what a more westernized culture expects. Another delicate point is the clash between tradition and modernity. Many young Mosuo women today have access to the internet, attend Chinese universities, and consume media that glorifies marriage, monogamy, and Western beauty standards. And with that, internal conflicts arise. Should they follow in their ancestors' footsteps or seek new paths? And of course, there's also the impact of tourism. Over time, the villages began receiving thousands of curious visitors eager to see with their own eyes how women-led societies work. Hotels were built, Traditional dances turned into performances, and some sacred rituals were transformed into tourist spectacles. While this brought money and opportunity, it also brought the temptation to cater to what tourists expect, instead of preserving the true cultural values. Despite all that, many Mosuo women remain strong. They don't see their culture as a burden, but as a powerful inheritance. To them, being a woman is a privilege. It means being a guardian. It means being a bridge between the past and the future. Maybe the great lesson from the Mosuo isn't about copying their model, but about learning to see the world through a different lens. It's interesting how the word matriarchy sparks strong reactions. While patriarchy has become a common term to describe how most societies operate, many assume its opposite must be a world where women oppress men, but that's not what happens among the Mosuo. There, female power doesn't mean domination, it means responsibility. What the Mosuo matriarchs show the world is that leadership doesn't have to be authoritarian. That care can be a legitimate way of guiding a community. That a society built on empathy, listening, and collectivity can work, and work well. Perhaps the climax of this story lies right here, when we understand that true revolution doesn't come from flipping the power dynamic, but from balancing it. The Mosuo matriarchy didn't arise to bring men down, but to build a structure based on deep and horizontal relationships. And that in itself is already a quiet and powerful subversion of the norms that rule most of the modern world. And in the end, one unavoidable question remains. If the Mosuo have managed to live so differently for centuries, why are we still convinced there's only one right way to organize a society? Could it be that we, on the other side of the world, are stuck in a model we've never dared to question? Maybe the answer lies in the wisdom of the mountains, in the voices of the grandmothers who lead their homes in Lugu Lake, and in the courage of the women who, every day, choose to keep alive a tradition that challenges everything the modern world tries so hard to preserve. Sometimes you have to look to the other side of the planet to realize just how limited your own worldview really is. And if you enjoyed this journey, don't forget to subscribe to the channel. Every week, we bring you stories like this, surprising tales that reveal hidden truths from the most unexpected corners of the world. Share it with someone who still thinks there's only one right way to live. Who knows, maybe this video will change their perspective too. See you in the next one.